from, sorry. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm from the marketing team here at Satin. Welcome to the Patriotic cookie class. I'm so glad that you guys have joined me today. Thank you. So today we're going to go over 3 different designs for sugar cookies using fondant. We have a striped design. Let's go over to the overhead camera and I'll be able to show closer to you. There we go. So we have a striped design. We have, oh, my cookie just broke. We have a marble design. And then we also have kind of a squiggly stripe design. So this is going to be 3 different techniques that we're going to go over. And I'm also going to go over how to mix fondant colors as well. So I'll go over the supplies that I have first. So I have a silicone mat that I'll be working on. This is to help from the fondant sticking to the surface, and it's just a clean space to work on. I also have a wet towel and a dry towel because as you're working with the different colors, you're going to want to make sure that you can wipe your hands to make sure there's no color residue as you work with another color. If you have a sink and soap next to you, that's great too. That's even better. I have a rolling pin. I have water and a food safe paintbrush. This is going to help us adhere the fondant to the cookies. I have cornstarch. This is also going to help from the fondant sticking to your hands or your work surface. Only a little bit is needed. It's important not to use too much because this can cause the fondant to dry out a little bit and we don't want that. I also have a star cutter and star-shaped sugar cookies. Now, if you don't have a star-shaped cookie or a star-shaped cutter, that's okay. You can do these designs with a circle cutter or a heart cutter, whatever design you have. I figured for the patriotic class, I would go with stars. And another thing is this design that we're going to do, you don't necessarily need to have sugar cookies. You can cut your shape out of a brownie, of a Rice Krispie treat, a piece of cake. The versatility is endless with fondant. So I also have a knife to cut pieces, and then I'll get into what fondant I have. So we're going to be using the classic fondant today, as well as the shimmer fondant. The classic fondant comes in a variety of colors and sizes, and it has a satin matte finish. So it's also allergen friendly. So it's gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, and vegan, which is awesome. I also have part of our shimmer collection here, which comes in silver, pearl, and gold. And this is awesome because this fondant is pre-mixed with 100% edible glitter. So there's no need for paint or powders, which is messy. So this fondant is mess-free and it's already to use, so you save time. This stuff is great. So you can either mix the shimmer fondant colors together to create different metallic shades, or you can put the metallic fondant with the classic fondant colors and create shimmer in any shade. So that's what I'm going to go over next, is how to color mix, because that gives you a lot of options. So when mixing fondant colors, we go in parts or by measurement if you have a food scale. So most people don't have a food scale, so I'm going to refer to these pieces as parts. So I have a shimmering red color, a shimmering white color. It's almost like a light silver pearlish color, and then a shimmering blue color. I don't know if you can tell on the camera that these are shimmery, but in person, they're very shimmery and beautiful. So what I did was I used 1 part of the silver shimmer fondant and then 2 parts of the color fondant to create these shimmering shades. And what you do is you just take 2 pieces and you mix them together until they become pliable and until they're completely mixed together, and you'll get the color that you want. So I'll go ahead and I'll show you how to mix these colors together before we start any designs, because if you want to use the shimmer mixes, you can do that as well. So first, we're We're going to open each of these colors. I also wanted to mention that I have plastic bags by me because if fondant is exposed to air for too long, it will dry out. So it's important to keep it in an enclosed container. And since we're working with the 4.4 ounces, these are packs that don't have a resealable option. So that's why we'll be able to just put them in the Ziploc bags and they'll stay fresh. So I'm going to take out the silver shimmer fondant and I'm going to show you how I divide this up into parts. With these being portioned as 4.4 ounces, kind of in a block form, it makes it really easy to show parts with this. It's harder to eyeball parts if you're working with a pail of fondant. So each part, so say we wanted 2 parts of this, I would cut it in half. Now we're using a lot less than this because when we add this to the color, we still want the pigment of the color and the vibrancy. So we're not going to add a ton of shimmer, just enough so that it gives it that shimmering finish. So then I'm going to cut each of these in half as well.
Hey, Amanda, while you are cutting, I have a question that came to me Amanda could only find gold and she wanted to know, could she mix it without changing the red color or the blue color?
Okay, so if you had gold, it will give it a different tone. It will probably give it more of an antique look. It would probably be really pretty. So I would say go for it. You can do a smaller amount at a time to see if it gives you a shade that you like, and then go from there. So I originally cut this piece of fondant in half and then I cut each half in half. So now I'm going to cut each of these pieces in half. So each of these small pieces are going to be 1 part for my mixes. And I'm not going to need all of these, but I'm just showing you so that you can understand the process. So since I'm only making 3 different shades of shimmer, I'm going to only need 3 of these parts because each of them only require 1 part of shimmer. So the rest of these I'm going to put away in the Ziploc bag so they stay fresh.
While we're on this subject, I have a question asking that they couldn't find the silver fondant. What could be a great substitute?
Okay, so if you can't find the shimmer fondant, the silver, there's also pearl and gold. But if you don't really need the shimmer for this. It just adds a nice touch. So if you have the white, the blue, and the red, that's okay too. The design is going to look just as pretty. If you wanted to add shimmer to fondant, you would need like a luster dust to knead into the fondant to create a shimmering finish, or like an edible paint to brush on top. Okay, so I have my 3 different parts of silver shimmer, and now I'm going to open up each of my colors. So I have red, white, and blue. So out of each of the colors, I'm going to do an equivalent of 2 parts. So 2 parts would be 2 of these pieces. So I'm just going to eyeball this. So I'm going to put this piece here, cut there, and then I'll move it over. So here's the ratio. We have 1 part shimmer fondant, 2 parts red fondant. And I'm going to go ahead and do this with the rest of the colors. While you're doing this, if you want, you can keep these colors in Ziploc just so they're not exposed to air for too long. So I'm going to keep those there, as well as these. And as you're working with these different fondants, you'll notice that the shimmer fondant does have a different texture than the classic because the formula is different and it has that pearlescent pigment in it. So if you notice, that's why. So another tip is if you're cutting into a colored piece of fondant, just always make sure to use your wet towel to clean the edge of your knife or whatever you're using to cut the fondant, because there will be color residue. And then always make sure to dry it off as well. So I'm going to take another part of my shimmer fondant out, and I'm going to use this to measure my 2 parts of white fondant. So I'm overlaying it over the white fondant to get the width of it, and I'm just making a mark in my fondant, and then I'm going to move it over and make another mark and cut through. So that's 2 parts white fondant and 1 part silver shimmer fondant. I'm going to put this in the bag next to the others while I do the blue. So for the blue, we're going to do the same thing. And these extra colors I'm putting in another Ziploc bag so that they stay fresh. So again, I'm going to take the 1 part of shimmer fondant, and I'm going to place it on top of the blue. And I'm just going to make an indent of where that ends. I'm going to move it over to the next to make another portion. And I'm going to cut through, and I'll have 2 parts blue and 1 part silver shimmer fondant. Okay, so now that we have our portions made up, what we're going to do is combine these 2 colors together. At first, when you're working with fondant, it might seem a little firm, and it's going to soften up as you need, and the warmth of your hands will help soften it up. But as you knead the fondant, it will activate the gums and it will make it more pliable and soft.
Hey, Sarah,
Yeah.
there's a question asking how long will the fondant, the unused fondant, last without drying out when it's wrapped?
So the fondant should last just as long as if it was in, if you were buying it in a pail, because the way that the fondant lasts in the pail is it's as long as the container is airtight, you'll be okay. So it's important, even if you want to wrap this in a plastic bag and then put this in a Tupperware, it will stay for weeks to months. Just make sure it's wrapped very well, because the fondant is sold in pails, and that has a 12-month shelf life. Okay, so my blue fondant is about kneaded, and then I'm going to start kneading the silver shimmer fondant. Because I'm combining these 2 together, I'm not going to worry about the pigment that got onto my hands from the blue fondant. So I'm just going to knead this. It might turn a little color, but that's okay because we're going to combine these anyway. Okay, so now that I have these both softened up, I'm going to combine them, and it's going to form a shimmery blue color. The shimmer fondant is really fun because it makes it so much easier to do those shimmering designs like mermaid tails or unicorn horns, especially with the gold. It's really pretty. Okay, so my silver and blue are completely combined. I just want to roll it out a little bit so that you guys can try and see the shimmer. So I'm going to hold it up here. And you'll be able to see the shimmer. Okay, so now that I have this color made, I'm going to place it into a bag so it stays fresh. And then we're going to mix the other colors as well. But before I mix the other colors, I do have to wipe my hands because I have a lot of glue. And if you have hot hands, you will notice that the fondant will stick to your hands. That's my problem. So I'm going to use some cornstarch the next round. Okay. So I'm going to take one part of the red of the silver shimmer and then the 2 parts of the red. And I'm going to sprinkle some cornstarch in my hands because mine are starting to get a little sticky. So I'm going to knead each of the colors just a little bit just to soften them so they combine easier.
Sarah, I have a question. Wanted to know, can you overwork fondant?
No, you can't overwork fondant. The only thing that can happen is if you're working with it too much out in open air, it could start to get dried out, but you'll notice if you work with fondant too much, it might get a little sticky, but the consistency should be fine. The part where it can ruin it is if you're working in a lot of cornstarch or if you're working in extra shortening, that's when the consistency can get a little weird. So if you are overworking it and putting extra things into it, that will affect it. But you simply just squeezing it and kneading it without anything should not affect the consistency in a bad way. Okay, so now I'm going to combine these 2 colors together. And you'll notice that this is going to make the red a little lighter, but not by too much. Just enough to give it some shimmer. You can also find a bunch of color mixes for the classic Satin Ice colors and the shimmer fondant colors on satinice.com, as well as our social medias, Pinterest and Instagram.
I have a couple of questions while you're doing that as well.
Okay.
One question is, should they start working with the white or the lighter color fondants first before the darker ones?
That would be, sorry, keep going.
And does it wash off easily, the color?
Yes, the color does wash off very easily. All you need is soap and water. I just don't have access to that right now, so that's why I have a wet cloth and a dry cloth. But yes, that is a good idea to work with the white and the silver shimmer first. For any lighter colors, that is a very smart idea. I should have probably done that.
And also, can you use flour in place of cornstarch?
No, you don't want to use flour in place of cornstarch, but you can use powdered sugar. Okay, so these are the last colors we're going to combine. So the silver and the white are going to create kind of like a really light silvery, almost pearl finish.
Watching you do that makes me think about playing with Play-Doh.
It's very similar to playing with Play-Doh. But you know what's better about this than Play-Doh is you can eat it.
Right.
And it's really delicious, actually. Okay, so I have all three of my colors made up, and now we can start the process of designing our cookies. So the first one I'm going to show you are the stripes, and just disregard that this cookie broke. There's going to be a blue stripe, a silver stripe, a red stripe, and a white stripe. If you want, you can go ahead and use your shimmering colors that you just made with the silver fondant. That's fine too. If you don't have the silver fondant, it's fine just with red, white, and blue as well. So what we're going to do is take portions of each of the colors and we're going to roll them into logs, but not too skinny. I'll show you the size because we're going to line them up next to each other and make them stick to each other and then roll them out into a flat surface that creates the stripes. So I'm going to start with my lighter color first, which is this light silver color. And I'm just going to take a portion off and definitely need some cornstarch. And I'm just going to roll a log. So I find it's easier for me to roll a log when on the surface and I use my two pointer finger and I lightly just press down and I move back and forth. And this is about the thickness and the size that you want. You don't want it too thick and you don't want it too thin because we are going to be rolling this out. So it's going to flatten. So we're going to be alternating these colors. So I would roll about 3 logs of each color and try to make them around the same size so they roll out evenly.
Sarah, I got a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
Once you've put the fondant, I want to say that's what she's asking, is once you put the fondant on the cookies, would you be able to freeze the cookies after?
Yes. So you can freeze the cookie with the fondant on it, but you want to make sure that when you are taking your cookies out of the freezer, that you do it in a process where you take them out of the freezer and then you put them in the fridge, because things will cause condensation when you take them out from a very cold temperature to a warm temperature. So you want to slowly bring it back to regular temperature. I would recommend freezing the cookies in advance and then cutting out your fondant in advance and then attaching it with icing or like a piping gel if you wanted to do things in advance.
Also, want to know if you would be able to provide the sugar cookie recipe.
So I don't have a sugar cookie recipe for these, but there's tons of really good sugar cookie recipes online on Pinterest. You can even buy store-bought sugar cookies as well. Those always work great. And like I said, if you don't have sugar cookies, you can use your cookie cutter and cut into a brownie to make a star shape, a Rice Krispie treat to make a star shape, or any shape that you're using. It's really endless. It's up to you. So now I'm onto my blue fondant and I'm making the logs in similar size to my light silvery color. So I'm going to do 3 of these as well. So first, what I'm doing, I'm rolling it into a ball, and then I'm using 2 fingers and I'm lightly rolling back and forth on each side to form a small log. Okay, so next I'm going to make my red logs. I'm just going to wipe my hands to make sure I don't have anything on here. You can also do this same technique if you're doing a cupcake topper as well. So you can cut out the shape that you want after we do the stripes, and you can let it dry and set so that you can place it on top of a cupcake. Okay, so I'm just taking small portions similar to the others, and I'm going to make 3 more logs. If once you roll your log and you're like, oh, maybe it's too big or it's too small, just roll it back into a ball and add more fondant, and then just re-roll it out. Okay, so I have all of my logs created. And what we're going to do is we're going to alternate the colors in whatever pattern you like. So I'm probably going to do red, white, and blue. And what you want to do is you want to line them up and have them touch each other and kind of stick them to one another. If you're having trouble with the pieces sticking, if you use cornstarch, you can use the tiniest amount of water to attach them. It's really important that you don't use too much water because that could make the colors from another fondant get onto another. So you just really want to make sure you use the minimal amount. So I'm doing is I don't even have a lot. I brush the excess water off. The brush is just a little wet, and I'm just brushing the log with a tiny bit, and I'm attaching it to the other pieces. And I'm alternating my colors. I'm going red, white, and blue. And then I just added another one, another white silvery color. And now I'm going to do another red. Okay, so I have all of these logs attached to one another. I have 2 extra. I guess I can add these on. I'll add these on to either side. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm kind of pressing each side and pushing them together to make sure that these stick together. And I am going to kind of brush a little bit of cornstarch on top because we are going to be hitting the rolling pin with it. So if you want, you can brush your surface with cornstarch just a little bit, not too much. And what we're going to do is roll back and forth with this. Okay, so we're going to take the rolling pin and we're going to roll forward. And then we're going to roll backward. And if you notice your pieces might be separating, just push them back together. Roll forward and backward. It's important that you're not rolling sideways yet because we want to try to keep the stripes uniform. And I'm just cleaning my rolling pin each time I go by because the water that I used a little bit too much here. So if the water gets on the rolling pin, it will cause the color to rub off as well. So I'm making sure my rolling pin is clean with each pass through. Okay, so I rolled this out probably about 1/4 inch thick, maybe between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch thick. You can go thinner if you want. I'm gonna go a little bit thinner because we are covering a cookie. If this was going to be for a cupcake topper, I would go on the thicker side because you can make it stand up. But since we are putting this flat on a cookie, we want it to be a good ratio. So now that we have the stripes made up, we're going to take whatever shape you have. I have a star, and you're just going to cut out your shape wherever you like, wherever your stripes are the best. You're going to press down and kind of, if you need to, like this helps with a cutter to get a clean cut, is kind of shake it a little bit to get a nice clean cut, and then you can lift it up, and then you have your striped star or whatever shape that you are using. So I'm using a slightly smaller cookie cutter than I used for the cookies themselves because I kind of like when the cookie shows extra outside of the fondant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush a small amount of water on the back of each piece of fondant. And then that's going to help it adhere to the cookie. And this is what it will look like. So if you have extra space, you can cut out more of your stars. If you're planning on doing this design for several cookies, you can make your logs bigger so you can roll out a larger portion. It all depends on how many you're doing at a time. Or another way I'm going to show you to use this leftover is we're going to create our marble design, which is this design. So normally if I was creating a marble design, I would take 3 different or 2 or 3 different colors of fondant, and I would form logs just like we did with the colors before, and I would twist them and then fold them and then twist it again and fold it and then roll it out to create a marbled look. But since we already have this extra fondant that we don't want to go to waste, what we're going to do is we're going to pick this up. I'm going to make sure that my surface is clean.
And Sarah, while you do that, I just want you to know that everyone loves your design.
Oh, thank you guys. I wish I could see yours. You guys should definitely show yours at the end of class if you're working along with me, and also post them on social media and tag Michaels and Satin Ice. We would love to see what you make. So what I'm doing with this extra, I'm not going to completely roll it up into a neat ball. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of compact it together, and then I'm going to roll this into a big log. And you can twist the log if you want. And it creates like a really cool effect. And then fold it in half again. And we'll do the same thing. Roll it out a little bit more, twist. And you can keep repeating this until you get a marble design that you like. So do that one more time. And then once you marble it enough, you can roll it into a ball, and then we're going to flatten it out and see what design we get with the rolling pin. So I'm just going to dust my surface with some more cornstarch. I'm just going to roll back and forth. And then I'm going to turn this so that I can create an even circle. So it's always really fun to see what marble design is going to come out from twisting your fondant. You can always check the back side too and decide which side you like better. This is one side, this is another. think this is cool because it almost looks like stripes. So I think I'm going to use this side. And again, I rolled it in between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch thick. And I'm going to cut out the star. And so I'm pressing down and I'm giving it a little jiggle or twist just to separate the edges. And this is going to give you a clean cut. What I mean by a clean cut is there's not pieces of fondant sticking out of the edges. If that did happen, you can just take your finger and press along to press them back onto the edge. Doing this marble design is going to give you more surface area to cut out more pieces. And then also you can re-roll this again and add more white into it if you want to create more marble. So I'm going to attach this to my cookie. So I'm brushing a small amount of water on the back just so that this can stick to my star cookie. And then this is what the marble design will look like. Everyone's marble will look different, which is very cool. And you can do this with whatever colors you want. If you want to just use 2 colors, you can use 2. If you want to use 4 colors, you can do that as well. So the next design I want to show you is how to get this squiggly stripe effect. That's really fun as well. And we're going to use the same colors as before. If you have any left, if you used all your shimmer colors, that's okay. You can just use red, white, and blue, or red, white, blue, and silver, whatever you have available. So with this extra fondant, I'll be able to create more marble designs. So I'm going to just put it together and I'm going to store it in a bag for later. I'm going to take the rest of my other colors out so I can show you the next design. So for this next design, I'm actually going to take out my white fondant. Just a small portion. And the portions that I'm showing you, you guys can go bigger if you have more cookies to cover or more toppers to make. I'm just showing you with smaller amount. And then I'm also going to take some of the regular straight up silver shimmer fondant that I have as well. And this hasn't been kneaded yet, so I'm just going to knead it a little bit. Okay, so the colors I have are white, I have the silver shimmer, and then I have the shimmer color mixes we made, which is the shimmery blue, the shimmery red, and then the shimmery pearl silver color. So to make this design, whatever base you want your, whatever background you want as the color. So I kind of created a stripe effect here, but if you wanted the main color to be blue, then you would start with blue, etc. If you wanted it to be silver, then you would start with silver. I'm starting with white because I want the colors of the stripes to pop. So I'm taking my portion of white and I'm going to roll this out, not too much, probably like just enough to flatten it so it has a flat surface. And then I'm going to take small portions of each of these colors, and I'm going to form strands of fondant. So we're going to use the same technique as creating the logs of fondant, but these are going to be much skinnier. But I'm going to use the same technique. I first rolled it into a ball, and then I'm going to roll back and forth with my finger to create a strand of fondant. You can go thicker with some, thinner with others. It's up to you. You can be creative. So what I'm going to do is, after each strand I make, I'm going to place it on top of this white fondant but I'm going to give it kind of like a swoop or an arc. And then I'm going to press it down, keeping that formation of the swoop effect. And I'm going to alternate my colors. So next I'm going to go with silver. So I'm taking a small portion. And I'm going to roll back and forth to create a strand. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to leave enough room for white so that we can get a stripe effect. And I'm going to do the same type of swoop shape, and I'm going to press it down so it sticks a little bit to the fondant. You don't have to press down too hard, just enough so that it kind of sets to the surface before we roll it out. So next I'm going to do the blue. So I'm just attaching it a little bit underneath the previous color, but giving enough space so that the white shows through.
Hey, Sarah, while you're doing that, what size is your silicone mat?
That's a good question. Wish I had a ruler here to measure it. I don't have a ruler to measure. It is pretty large though. You can find these almost anywhere. I like having the larger ones to take up more space so it's less mess to clean up on your tabletop surface. But they do have several different sizes.
Looks like about maybe a 16 by 20 maybe.
You might be right. Okay, so I'm going to go back with my red to continue the alternating of these colors. So since I'm mainly using 2 fingers, I'm just putting some cornstarch on 2 of them, and I'm going back and forth with light pressure to create skinny strands. And this is to help the fondant not stick to my fingers so that it can roll easily. So now I'm just lightly pressing this onto my white fondant. If you need to use this really small amount of water, what I do is I put my water in the cup. I put my paintbrush in the cup and I rub off the excess water, and then I dab it on a towel because I really don't want a lot of water. I just want the tiniest amount to help the fondant stick a little bit. Okay. So I'm just going to do one more small strand of silver. And then I might do another blue one up here.
And Sarah, what type of rolling pin is that?
This is just a standard fondant rolling pin. You can definitely get this at Michael's. If you don't have one of these, if you have a regular rolling pin that you would use for sugar cookies or pie dough, you can use that as well. This is just easier to handle. They also make larger ones as well if you're rolling out a large amount of fondant. So another thing is, notice how the fondant is kind of coming off the edges of this white piece of fondant. That's okay. We can cut those off. It's just easier to leave it that way rather than having to measure exactly to the white. So I'm just going to add a little bit more blue to the top, and then we'll be ready to roll it out to see what the design looks like. Okay, so I'm going to attach this little bit of blue to the top. So I have all this excess fondant on the edge, so I'm just gonna go around and I'm gonna just trim it off. It doesn't have to be really neat. Okay, so just go through one more time, press down to make sure that these are all adhered to the fondant underneath. And then now we're going to take our rolling pin and I'm going to start at the top and then I'm going to roll down. And that creates a really cool squiggly stripe effect. And if you didn't want as much white space, you could always put the colors closer to each other. I definitely want my silver in on this, so I'm going to choose up here to cut my star. I'm going to press down, give it a little squiggle. I'm going to do a few cuts so you guys can see the different designs it makes. This is fun because each one that you cut out is going to look a little different depending on how the stripes were. So you get a little bit of every color with each one. And then this is what my previous one looked like that I did already. This didn't have any shimmer in it. This was just white. So here's all of the cookies. We have our squiggle stripes. We have our marble. Here's another marble that I had done. The regular stripes. And then this is another striped one that I did. And then remember, any of your extra fondant, just make sure that you store it in your plastic bags. And yeah, that's it for today's class. I hope you all had fun, and I really want to see your designs, so share them with us on social media. And thank you guys so much for joining me for this Patriotic Star Cookie class, and I look forward to more. Bye, guys.
You know, and Sarah, before you sign off, there's just a couple of quick questions that came in. Since we have just a few more minutes, how thick did you cut the fondant to place on the cookies?
I usually like to go between a quarter or like about 1/8 of an inch to a quarter of an inch.
Okay, and then there's another question. Do you ever coat your fondant with Crisco before storing?
No, I don't do that. I have heard of people doing that. You can, if that makes you feel better, you can do that. It will kind of give it like a little bit of a barrier. I don't really like to put too much Crisco into my shortening, Crisco into my fondant because I don't want the consistency to change or anything to go wrong with my fondant. So I try to use the minimal amount of anything that I'm putting into it.
Okay, that looks to be the last question that we have.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.